Okay, in this first video, I want to show you how to install two specific applications that you're going to need in order for basic web development setup. So the first one's going to be Notepad++. So let's start from the beginning. I currently do not have it installed on this machine. So if I click on Start and I go up here and I search for Notepad, you just see the one Notepad app that's default by Windows. If I put ++, you don't see that installed. So since we don't have it installed, it's saying, well, do you want to search the web for it? So sure, we'll just say, let it search the web for Notepad++. It'll probably default to Bing, but notice it knows where to find it. So this is the proper place. So we'll just go ahead and go there. This is the home for Notepad++. And if you want to know more about it, here it is. But basically, it's way better than Notepad. And it has tabbed notes as well. And you can do light and dark mode. It's just, this is a very big tool used by developers to copy and paste code and different things in and out of. You can copy and paste your JavaScript, your HTML, your JSON, whatever you'd like. They're showing a little bit of code pasted into here. So let's go to download. And you'll notice the top download is probably what we want. There's lots of different versions and lots of different platforms supported. But if we just take this top one, it should go ahead and default to what we need for Windows. And they give us different options here. But if you just stick with the default options, x64, you'll be fine. Download. And that's going to fire up your downloader. So, of course, in Edge, you should have a download notification up here. You can either open it from there, or you can choose to go in the folder. So if you want to understand where that is right now, that's in your downloads folder. So, from here on the side, you have your downloaded files. So I'm going to go ahead and run this view of the files. It's probably weird. Probably looks more like this. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and it's this installer file here, npp.871, because that's the version for Notepad++. So npp stands for Notepad++. So we're going to go and run that. You want to allow this app. If you get a user access control, say yes, and you're then going to get the install prompt. So once this is up, you can really close your downloads window. In fact, if you want, you can close the browser entirely and just go ahead and focus on getting this installed. So you have English, and it wants to go next. You gotta accept all this, next, or I agree. I would accept the default program install, which is fine. Next. I would leave all these checked. Localization you don't need, but I would leave the rest of them checked. Next. Create a shortcut on the desktop. Yeah, you'll probably be using this app a lot, so might as well. And here we go. You want to run it now? Yeah, let's go ahead and finish and run. So that finishes the installer. The program is now installed, and as you can see, I have Notepad++, and it's even pulling up some notes I had been working on because I actually already had it on this machine. So it found it found my notes, and it also has the change log that comes up by default, which is like a default note. So if you don't have this note, don't worry, that was mine. But if we want to make a custom tab here, say new, and you can just keep doing that for as many tabs as you want. So if you want a bunch of different note tabs, you can just new them up, and then you should be able to also name these tabs. So I can rename this. I could call this first one my hot list of stuff I'm working on, for example. And right now I don't need these other tabs. So if you want to go ahead and make a new tab and name it hot list, you'll have the same as me. I'm now going to use this to both show you Notepad++ and set the agenda for what we want to download next. So let me go ahead and set the agenda here, and then maybe I'll do the next actual download of the next video. But here what we're going to do is say, for these first couple of videos, what are we going to want to do? We're trying to build something called Web Essentials. We'll just call them Web Dev Essentials. So I'm just typing in here, and I can return down a couple lines, and I'm going to say it's going to be about essential apps. It's trying to help me complete that. I'm going to say essential applications for Windows, because that's what we're going to be running in. So we want to get those installed. So we want to do the I'll give this a letter. And tab to tab it over. And I want this to be the Notepad++ we just installed. So Notepad++. And then I'll just copy this, return down a couple lines, and I can use that to cheat off of to do, of course it brought more tabbing with it. So I'll make this B. This is also kind of giving you a feel for using Notepad++ if you're following along. And while we're doing that, let's showcase a little bit of it. So if I've got, a few lines, like 9 lines of stuff here, well, this is in the default zoom and everything, default font, but I could change this if I want to. So if I wanted to just make everything a little bit bigger now, I could hit Control on my keyboard, hold Control, and then zoom in with my mouse scroll. And I can zoom in like that and make it bigger or smaller. Now, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll, maybe you're on a touchpad on the laptop, you can still control that zooming from a menu in here. I think it's View and then Zoom. So you see here, it'll tell you control mouse wheel up, control mouse wheel down, but you could just restore the default zoom there. You could go back into Zoom and say, well, I want to zoom in, and just do it that way. I want to zoom in until you're happy with how big the text is. You can also do dark mode or light mode in here as well. See if I can find that real quick. Is that under preference, setting preferences? It is possible to put it in dark mode. There it is, dark mode. So it's defaulted to light mode. You can explicitly force it to be dark mode, or you can set it to follow Windows, which is probably the better thing to do. So if your Windows theme is set to dark mode, like mine is, it could inherit that. If I change Windows back to a light mode theme, then it will flip back to light as well. So that's why it's probably better to set it that way. Okay, but A is Notepad++, and B is going to be a different app. So I'm going to replace this one with VS Code. And C is going to be essentially more VS Code, but it's going to be VS Code extensions. Okay, so make this a little bigger. So now I've got my Notepad++ installed. I kind of already did this one here, and I'm going to move on to getting VS Code downloaded and installed. VS stands for Visual Studio, by the way. It's Visual Studio Code, not to be confused with Visual Studio.net. The VS Code is a smaller IDE for you to develop in. Visual Studio.net is the full IDE where you would do a lot of .NET framework programming. And VS Code's more for, essentials for web like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. VS Code's great for all that. So we'll even make a note of that here. VS Code, and I'll just say in parentheses, best editor for, and just call it out. You want to use this VS Code for HTML, you want to use it for JavaScript, and you want to use it for CSS. It's also really good for doing JSON and XML as well, so I'll just throw JSON in here for now before the CSS, and there we go. So we have all your essentials. I mean, this is, if you're going to do web development, HTML is a must. That's what renders in the browser. JavaScript, almost the same. If you're going to have this, you're probably going to have at least some of that, if not a whole bunch, if you're going to do a whole modern UI on it. And then JSON, well, as soon as you get into this, to dynamically manipulate the HTML, you're going to need eventually some data in there. So the JavaScript leads to the data need, which leads to the JSON. And then, of course, style, back to your HTML. You're going to need the cascading style sheets in order to set proper colors and bold and, you know, layout specifications and all that jazz. Even all the way down to controlling font types. So CSS is pretty powerful now. So I need that. So that means that this VS Code app will be killer for all these. These extensions here, just give an example of what those are going to be, and then I'll in this first video. When I'm talking about extensions, I'm talking about VS Code themes. I'm talking about things like icon packs, that kind of stuff. So there's lots of different extensions. There's a whole library of them out there that different developers are making for VS Code, and they're all free to download, and they're all rated by the community. But I'll show you just a couple of initial ones that are kind of, I would consider, some essential extensions for once you've installed VS Code. Might as well install a few of these key extensions to kind of enhance your VS Code developer experience. Okay, so this is it, Web Dev Essentials, and kind of getting this spun up by installing Notepad++ and then using Notepad++ immediately as a tool for laying out what we want to do in these first couple videos. So I'm going to stop this one, and I'll see you in the next one.